live from our office headquarters here at United Way of Chatham-Kent. Today we are talking about learning remote. I have guests on Tracy Callaghan, St. The benefits, I suppose, to learning at home. So, Laura, can we start with you? And can you share
right now, I would say it's daily connections with teachers and digital using different kinds of platforms. So some might be using Google Classroom, or Edsby would be the two most popular ones in our school board. We're really trying to develop an understanding of what these kind of learning opportunities should look like for students, because this is different. Timelines are different. We have a big Ontario curriculum to try to unpack with students. And so part of it now is trying to figure out what important parts for us to be sharing with our kids and unpacking and learning and exploring, because there just isn't time to do everything right now. So we want to make sure that we get those essential understanding the front and the priority. We have students sharing their learning with teachers in a variety of ways. So that could be pictures, it could be video, it could be samples of their work using Google Docs. So again, we're really, I think, experimenting with different types of digital tools to give students an opportunity to share their learning with their teachers. As you may know, the ministry gave us the direction to focus on literacy and numeracy in elementary school. So our kids are certainly experiencing learning opportunities in those areas daily. But we are trying to enhance that with opportunities delivered from our French, our music, our phys ed specialists, and other things to sort of enhance the literacy and numeracy pieces that they're working with their kids. You're going to see, I think, feedback being shared with the students in different kinds of ways. There isn't as much emphasis on marks right now, and so a lot more conversations and feedback in words to kind of help kids know what's going well and what they need to do next to continue to improve their learning. Use of lots of different kinds of digital tools as we're trying to figure out what's out there and what works. So things like digital read alouds for some of our younger students, using different kinds of digital, to really leverage technology. I know in our board, we bought a new math resource that's all digital, that's really helping deliver some effective math learning experiences to kids in this digital kind of platform. Looking at things like the G Suite tools for educators through Google to offer different kinds of applications for teachers and students to be able to use to learn together. So I think we're seeing, lots of that kind of experimentation happening right now as we're trying to kind of figure things out. We're trying to have a balanced approach in learning, and just because we're offering our learning through a digital platform doesn't mean that all of the learning has to be on the computer. And we know, especially, a lot of the research out there is showing us that, kids' screen time, there's always other pieces to be considering with regards to balance. So trying to make sure we're offering kids a variety of things that they can be doing in their learning environments at home that may not all require a computer. We're really trying to listen to our families. These are the initial days of this distance learning. And so, I think we're really working to try to listen and see what's working and perhaps what we need to continue to improve. We're also, making sure that our learning opportunities are connected to other supports that we have in our board. So working with our social workers and our child and youth workers and our mental health lead to make sure that, when we're working with our families for learning, we're not forgetting that social emotional learning. It's not just about the cognitive piece, but trying to make sure that we're rooting that learning in good care and the well-being for all of our families.
So there must be, because this is all new to everyone, I'm imagining that there are some barriers that have presented themselves both in teaching staff, because you're using new technology, new platforms, and possibly not necessarily new platforms, but new to some teachers. And then, so I wonder if you could speak to that. And the other piece, could you maybe speak to some of the barriers that parents or students might be addressing? Like I said, we have been, and I know that in a completely different way, and it's just things are happening so quickly and so fast. I wonder how those new barriers to online learning for parents and children, how those are being maybe identified and addressed.
That's a great question. And, we so appreciate the partnership with organizations such as yours because, as I stated, the well-being of our families and our students is of the utmost importance for all of us. Kids can't learn if those basic needs aren't being met. We know that. And, this all happened so suddenly. There wasn't a lot of time to prepare. So, we really value the school boards truly value the partnerships we have in the communities to really make sure that we're doing our best to meet all of those needs of our families. And that has to be first and foremost. I think one of the biggest challenges we've had is offering digital learning in a distance learning model requires access to technology. And so, we did some quick research to figure out, which families in the school board needed technology in order to participate fully in this distance learning model. So that would be our first challenge is access to technology. So we're working really hard to deploy devices to families who perhaps do not have technology. Last week, we deployed 900 devices, Chromebooks, across our system, and next week we'll be deploying another 488. So the first, I would say, barrier. In addition to that, we have challenges with Wi-Fi access. So trying to troubleshoot through that challenge, looking for creative solutions. And so one of the ways we're doing that is we've had staff donating iPhones, and we're looking at repurposing them as hotspots for some of our families that don't have Wi-Fi or reliable Wi-Fi. We know that there are challenges with that in our rural areas as well. We're purchasing iPads that have Wi-Fi capability in order to, as another option, as we try to ensure all of our families have access. And in some areas where we just do not have the ability for the Wi-Fi, we're looking at fax machines and getting those deployed to those homes. So our goal is to get everybody connected, and that is the first and foremost, I think, priority for us after making sure their well-being is being addressed. They can't be engaged in this kind of learning if they don't have equity of access. So it's been all hands on deck and really working hard to make sure our kids are connected. We used to bring our families to school. Now we have to bring schools to families, and that's not an easy task, especially when you look at the geography of our school board. So that is something we're really proud of the work we've done so far, and we're confident we're going to be able to have everybody connected into this distance learning model and a part of that community. You mentioned for teachers, our teachers are working so hard as this was thrown at them, have there wanting to learn in the learning to date in the timeline of just 3 weeks. We've had over 900 sessions offered for digital types of learning opportunities for our teachers. So they are very eager and trying to really enhance their practice to be able to offer the best learning to their students as they possibly can. So that's really exciting. We've also developed a learning hub. So we have a spot for our teachers to go that have curated resources that we know are safe and relevant and effective. So teachers don't have to spend endless hours on the internet trying to find these. Our team has worked really hard to have them at their fingertips. And in addition to that, some sample lessons for literacy and numeracy so that teachers can kind of get a sense of what this looks like. Because I think one of the biggest challenges is finding that just enough learning, not too much, not too little. And it's going to take us some time to figure that piece out. I know in secondary and our high schools teachers are working really hard to be offering those learning opportunities to their kids as students in high school are following their schedules and have that connectivity with their teachers. And again, different kinds of digital tools being used by different teachers. But our first and foremost challenge, I would say, is really making sure all our kids have access.
That's awesome. So, Zach, it was probably, in the very beginning, it was probably good news for you to hear that your March break, not really your March break, but that school closures extended a March break. So, however, now you've been online learning this is your second week. Can you talk about maybe some of the challenges that you're having that online learning might present for you, not being sitting in a classroom and now?
Very difficult to get in a workflow because you're at home. And the reason is that when you go to school and you sit in a classroom and you have the teacher in front of you, you don't have very many options other than to get your work done. That's why you're there at school. But when you're at home, there's a lot of distractions and it's very easy to get sidetracked. It doesn't help that there's no push to do the work as much because it's not a personal connection. The digital platform sends out the notifications, but that could be easily brushed off, and it's like a mental game at that point. It seems like it would be good because it's half the work, but that means half the content, and therefore for my next years, that means I have learned less, and that will make my next few years more difficult.
So that would be one of your worries, right?
Yep.
Okay. So I was on the phone actually with one of Zach's teachers last evening. And Zach, I already, got permission for you to share that Zach has an individual education plan. And so that was my challenge, I suppose, as a parent, and to reach out to see, how are some of those barriers focused? That's probably, would you say that that's one of your biggest challenges, Zach, like staying focused and organized?
I think that's one of the biggest challenges, and it's not just for me, it is for a lot of students, I've noticed.
Because they're learning remotely?
Yeah, because like I said before, when you're in a class to learn and to do your work, and it's just a lot easier because you're in an environment where people around you are doing the same thing. You don't have all these distractions of just being at home. It's just much easier when you're in a classroom.
It's probably easier to listen to direction from a teacher than your mother.
That's true.
Yes. Okay. So, and I think that, with things being new for students, teachers, parents, we are going to see these challenges, and we're just going to have to work through them. And I love seeing all of the changes, now everyone's using it. So I know that for a parent, I heavily rely on it. And what about some positive things, Zach? Because, this is the future, right? The future is technology. We see online learning already in universities. Now that we are into it, I certainly cannot see us going back. And I think that that's a good thing. Of course, we still need that in person. But, I'm so overwhelmed with how quickly the school board were able to, the boards and the teachers and the staff for being able to roll it out. I know on my end, what I'm seeing is very detailed work. Just as you were saying, we're using the EDSP system, and it's they get their assignments through there. They can send them back and forth. They get the communication. They get I know Zach's teacher is reaching out to him on one-on-one basis to touch bases. So I want to commend your team for being able to pull off what you have in such a short period of time, including reducing some of those barriers. Is there anything
end of things, because we're working so hard on our end, and I can't say in this role I've had that connectivity with kids yet. We certainly will. So it's really interesting to hear your perspective. I think this is putting a lot on our students to really quickly develop those independent work skills we so want our kids to have. And I think, that's a good thing. That's going to be a good thing. There are going to be lots of good things that come out of this crisis, if we try to look with some optimism. So that's a good thing. But I think, as we continue to move forward and teachers continue to build their repertoire of digital tools and their comfort with them, I think we're going to see, new and innovative ways of continuing to have that connectivity with kids, to be able to offer that encouragement and those little check-ins, as a frequent piece of the learning throughout the day. And you mentioned the student success teachers. I know we're working hard too, as we kind of continue to learn about what distance learning means, how we can engage those kinds of support teachers in their various roles, our EAs, our program resource teachers. And as I already mentioned, people from our well-being team to be able to continue to support kids in meaningful ways. So, I think that's great feedback from you, and certainly nice to hear some positive pieces too, but we know our work is not done, and we need to continue to think about things and innovate to respond to needs of kids like yourself.
So I didn't have my armband on, and I just put my armband on.
So, and Laura, just and can you maybe, do you have any tips for parents out there that how to keep their children engaged in learning, like even as far as like keeping them in some sort of a routine? Like I said, I'm challenged with it because now Zach doesn't have to get up at 8 o'clock in the morning to be across the street for 8:15. So I'm not ensuring that he's out of bed, and by that he's also up a little bit later. So I'm okay with that, I suppose, because this is a different schedule that we're all on. But is there anything that you could tell me as a parent that that might be helpful in my case to keep him engaged?
Sure, we do. And I think parents need to just take a breath. That would be my first advice. I think this has all come upon us really quickly, and our parents are so well intended and they want what's best for their kids. And so we take it upon ourselves to, try to navigate this. And I think, our kids are in good hands. The first week of this phase one of this continuity of learning was really put in the parents' hands. It happened so quickly, and our Ministry of Education was great and got lots of resources for parents online. It was almost too much. I think it was overwhelming for a lot of families, because you go on and there'd be this list of endless resources that you could use with your kids. And then school boards jumped on, and we offered more resources, if you weren't already feeling overwhelmed with the number of things that are out there. All well intended, because we care about our kids and we want them to continue learning. But now we're in phase two. And phase two is teacher-led learning. And so I think we need to let our teachers be in the driver's seat and let our students drive along with them. We're learning every day a little more about what those learning opportunities should look like for kids, because now they're directed at the student. Whereas, the first week of this, I would say the direction was really going to the parents. So it's kind of, I think that's a bit of a transition for everyone. And what we really hope is that our parents are keeping open lines of communication with their schools and their teachers, and letting us know and letting the teacher know if something's just not working, if there's too much coming home or not enough coming home, or the timelines aren't working, or, it's easier to have face-to-face conversations when you come and pick up your child at school, or you see the teachers at events and whatnot, and that's all gone now. So we really want our parents to feel comfortable to reach out and let us know how things are going, to do the best you can. to support the kids, and the kids have to take some ownership of this as well. And that's a shift too, because the first week was kind of more of a invitation. Now there's a little more expectation, I would say, for kids to be participating in the learning a little more fully. So I think that's all part of this transition. I think one of the best ways parents can help is to really just talk to their kids about what they're learning, show some interest, but let the kids, be as independent as they can to get through the learning on their own. I think that engagement and really valuing what the kids are doing and talking about that is really a great way for parents. Office hours, we're calling them, availability, I'm sure in various ways, depending on the teacher in the school, but they're available for a phone call to reach out and say, you know what, this isn't working, or you know what, that was awesome last night, that was perfect. So I think that kind of ongoing communication is really, really important. I think trying to establish some balance too. The kids don't have to do all of the learning all at one sitting, giving them some opportunities to do some other things throughout their day, get them up and moving. Those kinds of things we do at school. We call it daily physical activity in a classroom. So really watching how long they're sitting there trying to get through their learning. The ministry gave us outlines as far as, how many hours a week is the expectation for kids. And it is less than what school is, but that's because they're not at school. They're at home. And as Zach shared, it's a different learning environment. So we can't expect the same timelines to be happening when kids are learning at home. I've heard of some families kind of working through establishing some house rules and working with their kids to come up with a schedule. One of the other challenges I hear from families is just the number of devices in a family. So you may have Wi-Fi and a device, but you could have 5 people trying to use 2 computers all of a sudden, with families working at home and different kids in the house. So trying to figure out a schedule that works, trying to prioritize learning time. So perhaps when it's learning time, it's kind of quiet time in the house as well. And perhaps, other kinds of uses for technology are being limited. Everyone feel a part of the conversation and a part of the decision making. I think the thing I can't stress enough is just for that ongoing communication and to make sure you're reaching out to your child's educator to let them know how things are going, what's working, and what we can continue to improve upon. We're really in a trial and error kind of learning environment right now as we kind of muddle through this. I'm glad things are off to a great start, but it's going to require continued, reflection and changes in order for us to continue to make this a really good learning experience for our kids.
Well, I have to tell you, coming from from the superintendent to a parent here, you made me feel better. When I was speaking with one of my son's educators last night, she started out with, that we have this tool and this information. And I kindly stopped her for a moment and I said, I just want to preface, what's happening right now in our family, because everyone's situation looks completely different, right? We have people that are idle because of COVID, and we have people that are busier than ever because of COVID, and equally both are hurting. So thank you for that. Zach, is there anything else that you can add? Like, how are you connecting with your friends? Do you miss that, that face-to-face social interaction? And how are you doing that now?
So it's really difficult to go from every day seeing your friends, seeing your closest, people that you connect with the most. One of the people, a group of people that you connect with a lot, at least. For me, seeing my friends every single lunch, weird, because it's not the same connection when you text them or when you call them. The face-to-face interaction is really, really useful, and it's different. It's hard to put in words, but when you're just texting someone or calling them, or even a video call, it's just not the same. And so there's difficulties that way.
Okay. So it's funny because if I were in your shoes back when I was in grade 10, it would have been awesome to have the technology, but it's just that you're so used to having the technology that, yeah, so I understand that. Is there anything else, Laura, that you want to add before we close out this conversation?
I guess just my thanks for this opportunity, and my thanks to all of our partners in our communities that are helping our families. Our thanks to our parents who are working so hard to try to make the best of this situation. To our kids, we care so much about them, and
it takes a village, and we're all in this together. And I am constantly reminding my children of to watch out for all of the blessings, because there's very many all around us. So thank you for joining us today, Laura, and thank you for sharing. Zach, thank you too for your time. And I hope by the time I get home, the vacuuming's done. Got to throw that in after your schoolwork, of course. So thank you both for joining us. If join us tomorrow, we'll be talking about that. So thank you everyone for joining us. Stay connected. Laura, if you want to send any messages to parents, we are definitely always updating our CK Gives website page, including on student